Have you ever met someone who could walk into a room and instantly command attention without saying a word? A person so magnetic that people naturally follow their lead, even when they have no official authority. These rare individuals possess what Robert Greene calls the charismatic personality, one of the most powerful forms of influence known to humanity. Today, we're diving into the captivating story of Alex Chen, an ordinary-looking man with extraordinary abilities to inspire, persuade, and transform lives. His journey reveals the hidden secrets of charisma that anyone can develop, secrets that have helped ordinary people become great leaders, successful entrepreneurs, and beloved figures throughout history. Before we begin this transformative tale, take a moment to subscribe to Story-Driven English and hit the notification bell. Each week, we bring you fascinating stories like this one that not only improve your English skills, but also reveal powerful insights about human psychology and success. Our unique storytelling approach makes learning English both enjoyable and practical. You'll absorb new vocabulary naturally while discovering principles that can change your life. Now, settle in as we explore how a shy history teacher became the most influential person in his town without wealth, power, or connections, using only the magnetic force of his charisma. The techniques you'll learn in this story could completely transform how others respond to you in every area of life. Let's single quotes begin. The Magnetic Man, a story of Charismian, the small town of Riverside, where the pace of life moved as slowly as the gentle river that gave the town its name, lived a rather ordinary-looking man named Alex Chen. At first glance, there was nothing remarkable about him. Average height, regular features, and a simple wardrobe that rarely strayed from blue jeans and plain shirts. But despite his unassuming appearance, Alex possessed something extraordinary that set him apart from everyone else in town. It wasn't wealth, or physical strength, or even exceptional intelligence. It was charisma, a magnetic quality that drew people to him like moths to a flame. Alex hadn't always been this way. Growing up, he was a shy boy who often blended into the background, watching rather than participating. His transformation began in his late teens when he discovered that confidence wasn't something you were born with, it was something you could build, like a muscle. And that's exactly what he did. Day by day, interaction by interaction, Alex trained himself to stand taller, speak clearer, and most importantly, to believe in his own worth. By the time he was 30, Alex had become somewhat of a local legend in Riverside. He worked as a high school history teacher, a profession that perfectly suited his natural ability to captivate an audience. Students who normally dozed through classes sat upright in his, hanging on his every word as he brought historical figures to life with vivid storytelling. Even the most rebellious teenagers found themselves unable to resist the pull of his enthusiasm. There was something about the way he spoke, with such conviction and passion, that made even the most boring historical events seem like thrilling adventures. But Alex's influence extended far beyond the classroom. He was the kind of person others instinctively turned to for advice or support. When he walked into a room, people noticed. When he spoke at town meetings, others listened, not because he was loud or demanding, or because he held any official power, but because he radiated a quiet confidence that made his words carry weight. On a particularly rainy Tuesday morning, Alex arrived at school to find a notice pinned to the staff room bulletin board. The town council was planning to close down the community center due to budget cuts. This was especially troubling news because the center served as a safe haven for many of the town's youth, providing after-school programs, sports facilities, and a place to simply hang out away from the troubles that sometimes waited at home. Alex stood looking at the notice, feeling a familiar sensation rising within him, a mixture of determination and responsibility. He knew that if the center closed, many of his students would lose a vital support system. Without saying a word to anyone, he decided then and there that he would do something about it. Over the next few days, Alex began laying the groundwork for what would become known in Riverside as the Center Campaign. He didn't make grand announcements or dramatic speeches. Instead, he approached people individually, parents, fellow teachers, local business owners, speaking to each with the same intense focus, as if they were the only person in the world. This was one of Alex's greatest gifts, the ability to make others feel important, valued, and heard. The town needs this center, he would say, looking directly into their eyes with unwavering conviction. And more importantly, the kids need it. I believe we can save it, but I need your help." It was remarkable how quickly people signed on to help. Mrs. Rodriguez, who ran the local bakery and was known for her grumpy disposition, agreed to donate refreshments for fundraising events. Mr. Jenkins, the retired accountant who rarely left his house, volunteered to review the center's budget and find efficiencies. Even teenagers who typically avoided any form of community service began showing up at planning meetings, eager to contribute. When asked later why they had joined the cause, most people gave similar answers. "Alex asked me to, or I couldn't say no to Alex." It wasn't that he pressured them or manipulated them. Rather, his belief in the mission was so genuine and his faith in their ability to contribute so absolute that they couldn't help but believe it too. For weeks after seeing the notice, Alex stood on the small stage in the school auditorium, looking out at the crowd that had gathered for the first major fundraising event. The room was packed, far more people than he had expected. For a brief moment, he felt a flicker of nervousness. Then he took a deep breath, straightened his shoulders, and stepped forward. "Thank you all for coming tonight," he began, his voice clear and steady. "I'm not going to talk about why the community center matters. You already know that. Instead, I want to talk about what happens next." As he spoke, laying out the plan to save the center, Alex noticed something happening in the room. People were leaning forward in their seats, nodding along with his words. Some had tears in their eyes. Others wore expressions of fierce determination. This wasn't just his mission anymore. It had become theirs to dot by the end of the evening. They had raised 3 times the amount Alex had hoped for. More importantly, they had formed a committee dedicated to finding a permanent solution to the center's funding issues. As people filed out of the auditorium, many stopped to shake Alex's hand or pat him on the back. He accepted their gratitude with humility, always redirecting praise to the team effort. What Alex understood intuitively was that true charisma wasn't about being the loudest voice in the room or demanding attention. It was about connection, genuine, human connection. He never spoke down to people or tried to impress them with fancy words or grand gestures. Instead, he met them where they were, speaking simply and clearly about things that mattered. In the months that followed, Alex led the campaign with steady determination. There were setbacks, of course. The initial excitement waned, as it always does. Some volunteers drifted away. The town council remained skeptical that the community could sustain long-term funding for the center, but Alex never wavered in his belief that they would succeed. One of the most challenging moments came during a heated town council meeting. Mayor Wilson, a practical woman with little patience for what she considered unrealistic idealism, had just finished explaining why the proposed community funding model wouldn't work. "I appreciate the enthusiasm," she said, her tone making it clear that she didn't really appreciate it at all. "But we have to be realistic. The numbers simply don't add up." A hush fell over the room. People looked at Alex, waiting for his response. In these situations, most people would either become defensive or back down. Alex did neither. He stood up slowly, thanked the mayor for her perspective, and then proceeded to address each of her concerns one by one. He didn't raise his voice or show frustration. Instead, he spoke with the same calm certainty he always did. "I understand your concerns," he concluded, "and they're valid. But we believe, that the value of the center can't be measured only in dollars and cents. And we're asking for the chance to prove that." Something in his demeanor, the unwavering eye contact, the respectful but firm tone, the clear conviction in his words caused the mayor to pause. After a moment, she nodded slowly. "You have 3 months," she said. "Show us this can work." Later, Councilmember Davies was overheard saying to a colleague, "I came in ready to vote no, but that man, there's something about him that makes you want to believe." That was the magic of Alex's charisma. He didn't just persuade people with logical arguments, although he was certainly capable of that. He made them feel something: hope, possibility, purpose. And when people feel those things strongly enough, they'll move mountains. The 3-month probation period flew by in a whirlwind of activity. Alex organized bake sales, car washes, benefit concerts, and corporate sponsorship drives. But his most innovative idea was creating a mentorship program that paired skilled retirees with teenagers interested in learning their crafts. This program not only provided valuable services to the community, generating income for the center, but also created meaningful connections between generations that had rarely interacted before. Throughout it all, Alex maintained the same steady presence. He wasn't a flashy leader who needed constant validation or attention. He showed up consistently, did what he said he would do, and expected others to do the same. When volunteers grew tired or discouraged, he didn't try to motivate them with rousing speeches. Instead, he worked alongside them, his quiet persistence more inspiring than any words could be. There was one particular volunteer, a woman named Sarah, who had been skeptical of Alex from the beginning. "He seems too good to be true," she had told her friend when she first joined the campaign. "Nobody is that selfless and optimistic. He must have some angle he's working." But as weeks passed, Sarah found herself increasingly drawn into Alex's orbit. She watched how he treated everyone with the same respect, whether they were the town's wealthiest business owner or a troubled teen with nothing to offer but time. She noticed how he never took credit for successes, but was always the first to accept responsibility for failures. Most impressively, she saw that his charisma wasn't an act he put on for public consumption. It was consistent in both public and private settings. One evening, as they were cleaning up after a particularly successful fundraiser, Sarah finally asked the question that had been bothering her. "Why do you care so much about this place? What's in it for you?" Alex paused in his sweeping, considering the question seriously. "When I was 14, he said finally, "I was headed down a bad path, angry all the time, getting into fights. My home life wasn't great, and I didn't see much of a future for myself." He resumed sweeping as he spoke, his eyes on the floor. "There was a center like this in my neighborhood. Not as nice, but the same idea. And there was a man there, Mr. Booker, who saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. He believed I could be more than my circumstances. And eventually, I started believing it too." He looked up at Sarah then, his expression open and genuine. "I guess I just want to be that person for someone else. That's all." In that moment, Sarah understood the source of Alex's charisma. It wasn't some technique he had learned or a role he was playing. It came from a place of authenticity, of knowing exactly who he was and what he stood for. And there was immense power in that certainty. As the 3-month probation period drew to a close, the community gathered once again in the school auditorium for a final presentation to the town council. The room was even more crowded than before, with people standing along the walls and sitting in the aisles. The energy was electric with anticipation. Mayor Wilson called the meeting to order, her face unreadable as she invited Alex to present his findings. Alex walked to the front of the room with the same steady confidence he always displayed, but those who knew him well could see the slight tension in his jaw, the way he took a deep breath before beginning. This mattered to him deeply, and for once, his emotions were close to the surface. 3 months ago, he began, "You challenged us to prove that the community center could be financially sustainable. Today, I'm not here to tell you that we met that challenge." He paused, and a worried murmur ran through the crowd. "I'm here to tell you that we exceeded it." For the next 20 minutes, Alex laid out the results of their efforts, the successful programs, the community partnerships, the financial projections. He didn't use fancy presentations or emotional appeals. He simply presented the facts, clearly and directly, allowing them to speak for themselves. When he finished, Mayor Wilson removed her glasses and rubbed the bridge of her nose. "Well," she said after a moment, "it appears I was wrong. And I've never been happier to admit it." She looked up at Alex with newfound respect. "The council will vote officially next week, but I think I can speak for all of us when I say the community center is here to stay." The room erupted in cheers. People jumped to their feet, hugging each other and clapping. In the midst of the celebration, several teenagers made their way to Alex. They were the tough cases kids, with troubled backgrounds, who had initially come to the center because they were required to buy the juvenile justice system. Now they stood before him, awkward but sincere. "We got you something," said Marcus, the unofficial leader of the group, holding out a clumsily wrapped package. Alex opened it to find a framed photograph of all of them together at a center event, along with a card signed by each teen. Inside, they had written, "Thanks for believing in us when nobody else did." It was perhaps the greatest testament to Alex's charismatic leadership, not the successful campaign or the saved center, but these changed lives. He had seen potential in these kids when others saw only problems, and that belief had become a self-fulfilling prophecy. The story of the community center's salvation spread beyond Riverside, featured in regional newspapers, and even mentioned on a national news segment about grassroots community activism. Suddenly, Alex was receiving invitations to speak at conferences and consult with other towns facing similar challenges. Fame didn't change him though. He remained the same grounded, authentic person he had always been. When a local reporter asked him the secret to his success, he seemed genuinely puzzled by the question. "There's no secret," he said with a slight shrug. "I just believe in people. And when you truly believe in people, they tend to live up to your expectations." That simple philosophy was at the core of Alex's charisma. He saw the best in others and reflected it back to them, making them believe in their own potential. He didn't demand respect. He earned it through his actions and consistency. He didn't seek to control or manipulate. He aimed to inspire and empower. 5 years after the campaign to save the community center, Riverside had transformed in ways no one could have predicted. The center had become a model for similar facilities across the state. The mentorship program had expanded, creating bridges between different segments of the community. Even Mayor Wilson, once Alex's greatest skeptic, had become one of his strongest allies. Alex himself had grown too. The confidence that had once been carefully cultivated was now as natural to him as breathing. The charisma that had once seemed almost magical was revealed to be something much more ordinary and yet much more powerful, the authentic expression of a person who knew his purpose and lived it every day. On a warm spring evening, Alex sat on a bench outside the community center, watching as people came and went. A group of teenagers played basketball on the court nearby, their laughter floating across the lawn. Inside, lights glowed warmly in the windows as various classes and activities took place. Sarah, who had become both a close friend and a dedicated advocate for the center, sat down beside him. "Penny, for your thoughts," she said. Following his gaze to the bustling center, Alex smiled, the lines around his eyes crinkling. "I was just thinking about Mr. Booker, the man I told you about from when I was a kid. He never got to see any of this, but I think he'd be proud." "He would be," Sarah agreed. Then, after a pause, "You know, you've become that person for so many people here, the one who sees their potential before they do." Alex shook his head slightly, always uncomfortable with direct praise. "I just point out what's already there," he said. "The strength, the capability, it's in everyone. Most people just need someone to remind them of it sometimes." As twilight deepened into evening, they sat in companionable silence, watching the life of the community unfold around them. It struck Sarah then, not for the first time, that Alex's charisma, that indefinable quality that drew people to him and inspired them to action, wasn't something he possessed but something he gave away. He saw the best in others, believed in their potential, and in doing so, helped them become the best versions of themselves. And perhaps that was the truest definition of charisma, not the ability to get others to follow you, but the ability to help others find their own path. Not the power to charm or persuade, but the strength to uplift and empower. Not the skill of commanding attention, but the gift of paying attention to what truly matters. That as stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Alex stood up, stretching his back. "Time to lock up," he said, pulling the center keys from his pocket. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to make a difference, and Alex would meet them with the same steady confidence, the same authentic presence, the same charismatic leadership that had become his hallmark, not because he was trying to impress anyone or achieve some personal gain, but because this was who he was, a magnetic man who had discovered that true influence comes not from demanding it, but from deserving it. And in a world often characterized by superficiality and self-interest, that kind of genuine charisma was as rare as it was powerful. It couldn't be faked or forced. It could only be earned, day by day, choice by choice, through consistent actions, aligned with deep convictions. As Alex turned the key in the lock, securing the center for the night, he thought about all the lives that had been changed because of this place, including his own, and he felt that familiar sensation of purpose that had guided him from the beginning. Not pride, exactly, but a quiet satisfaction in knowing that he had stayed true to his values and made a difference in the process. Walking home under the starlit sky, Alex reflected on the journey that had brought him here. From a shy, uncertain boy to a man known for his charismatic leadership. It hadn't happened overnight. It had been a process of small choices, daily habits, and consistent actions that gradually shaped not just how others saw him, but how he saw himself. The greatest revelation had been understanding that charisma wasn't about being perfect or extraordinary. It was about being perfectly comfortable with who you are, flaws and all, and helping others feel the same comfort in their own skin. It was about showing up authentically, day after day, regardless of circumstances or audience. As Alex reached his modest home at the end of Maple Street, he thought about tomorrow's classes and the new history unit he would be starting. He smiled, already imagining the stories he would tell to bring those distant figures to life for his students. Teaching had been his first love, and despite all the other opportunities that had come his way, it remained his greatest joy, because, at its heart, teaching was about the same thing that had driven all his efforts with the community center: seeing the potential in others and helping them realize it. And there was no greater expression of charisma than that. Key vocabulary repeated throughout: charisma, a special power that some people have to attract and influence others. Magneti, having a strong power to attract people. Confidence, believing in your own abilities and qualities. Influence, the power to affect how other people think or behave. Authentic, real or genuine, not fake. Conviction, a strong belief or opinion and wavering, not changing or becoming weaker. Decisive, able to make decisions quickly and clearly. Presence, the way someone makes others feel when they enter a room or situation. Leadership, the ability to guide or direct a group of people. Inspire, to make someone feel that they want to do something and can do it. Consistent, always behaving or happening in the same way. Determination, the quality of continuing to try to do something, even when it is difficult. Empowerment, giving someone the power or authority to do something. Persistence, continuing to do something despite difficulties or opposition. Purpose, the reason for which something is done or created. Transformation, a complete change in someone or something. Potential, qualities or abilities that may be developed and lead to future success. Vision, the ability to think about or plan the future with imagination and wisdom. Integrity, the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles. Thank you for joining us for today's story about Alex Chen, the charismatic teacher who transformed his community through his magnetic personality and unwavering conviction. Through his journey, we've explored how true charisma isn't about being the loudest in the room, but about authenticity, consistency, and the ability to see potential in others. We hope this story has not only helped improve your English skills, but also inspired you to recognize and develop your own charismatic qualities. Remember, like Alex, we all have the power to influence those around us when we act with genuine purpose and belief. Did you relate to any part of this story? Perhaps you've encountered a charismatic person like Alex in your own life, or maybe you're working to develop these qualities yourself. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed The Magnetic Man, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with friends who are also learning English or interested in developing their personal charisma. Don't forget to subscribe to Story Driven English for more engaging stories that help you improve your English while exploring fascinating aspects of human psychology and behavior. Click the notification bell so you'll never miss our weekly uploads of new stories, vocabulary lessons, and English learning tips. Thank you for watching. And remember, just like Alex discovered, true charisma isn't something you're born with. It's something you can develop day by day. We'll see you in our next story.